Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm Macy Renee, and I'm so excited to have you here this morning. If you are brand new here, welcome. I hope you enjoy the episodes. And if you're a returning listener, well, I love you as well. So a fun thing that I realized about the podcast. Also, you guys, if the sound quality is a little bit different, I'm using a new mic, so we're going to try it out and see the quality of the episode. But something that's been fun is watching every week how much traction the podcast is picking up. So I remember when I first started the podcast and I was excited to get like 50 downloads a week and 150 downloads a week. And there for a while, the podcast stayed around 220 downloads a week. And now it's usually about 550 downloads every single week. So that's really exciting. I look forward to the days where it's one day thousands of downloads each week. So keep sharing with your friends, keep telling them about it. I love it. It makes me so happy to see the podcast growing. It makes me really happy to receive messages from you guys, introducing yourselves if I've never met you, and just sharing the impact that the podcast has had on your life. And so with that being said, that is actually how we're going, not how, but why we're going to be talking about what we are today. I received a message. I'm going to probably butcher her name, Rocio. She reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm new to your fan group and saw one of my Facebook friends recommending your podcast on her Facebook, and I jumped and searched you in Spotify, and I fell in love. I have been listening to your podcast every morning. I'm trying to develop as a person, and I am loving your Facebook Lives and podcasts. Do you have any recordings about weight loss and mindset?" And we talked a few messages back and forth, and I told her I would love to add that as a topic on the podcast because I actually have never talked about that. I think a lot of people probably have questions about it, and so that is going to be our topic today. One more thing very quickly before we get started, I want to remind you of the opportunity to receive 6 coaching calls for $300. That is going on right now because I am getting certified by the Life Coach School. I'm looking for people that want to basically receive a specific way of coaching, something that I'm mastering within the school. And that is called the model. And so if anybody is interested in that, I want to let you know it's still not too late to find my Google form on Instagram in the bio with the link tree, or on Facebook. It's not too late to reach out to me and get the Google form to fill out. I've been seeing some forms come through, and that's amazing. I'm going to be selecting maybe 4 to 6 people. And again, it's your opportunity to receive 6 coaching calls at just $300 because I'm practicing the mastery of this specific skill. So it's still going to be amazing coaching. But it saves you a lot of money because if you haven't checked my one-on-one coaching, that is a $5,000 investment for 6 months or a $10,000 investment for 12 months. So you're getting 6 calls for $300. So if money is the reason why you haven't pursued coaching and you're ready to receive some deep, powerful coaching, we can work together for 6 weeks for $300. So I just want to remind you of that and let you know that if you're interested, please fill out the Google form as soon as possible so I can review it before I pick all the applicants that I'm going to work with. Tell me your reason why you're interested in coaching, right? What some of the things that you would love to work on. And it can be anything. You can bring anything you want, because the idea behind this certification is it doesn't matter what people bring to the table, what my clients bring to the table. I should be able to coach them on anything when I master this specific skill. And so that is what I really want to focus in on, is becoming even better as a coach. And I am excited to see the people that I work with next, whether you've never worked with me ever or you've worked with me multiple times. It doesn't matter. You can be a current client. You could be someone who's been watching. You could be someone who just finds this podcast today. It really doesn't matter. But you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, and I put all that information in all the show notes of every single podcast episode. So you should be able to find me pretty easily. All right, you guys, let's talk about mindset and weight loss, because I think that this, again, is something that people struggle with and don't really know how to think about it or how to navigate it in order to create the result that they ultimately want. So what I want to remind you of, and something that I talk about on the podcast a lot, is that our circumstances are neutral. Okay, our circumstances are neutral. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly does that mean? And our circumstances being neutral means that if everybody would have to agree upon the same thing for a circumstance not to be neutral, okay? When we state our stories in life about something that's happening to us, we often state it as the fact and as truth, and believe that everybody should also agree that it's horrendous, right? If we believe it's horrendous, or that it's awful, if we believe that it's awful. But there are people in the world that maybe could hear our story and think that it's not that awful. And so when you're looking at your circumstances, I want you to know that they're neutral events that happen, and then we assign meaning to them. So in regards to weight loss, right, or weight management, what you end up doing is let's say you step on a scale and you see the number, okay? That number that you see on the scale is just a circumstance. So whether you see 130 pounds, 175 pounds, 250 pounds, 300 pounds, it really doesn't mean anything until your mind has a thought about it and assigns meaning to that number. The number itself is neutral. It's not good or bad. That's what neutrality means. It's not good or it's not bad. That not everybody in the world would agree with the meanings around that number. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have a woman that steps on the scale. She's 4'11" in height, and she sees 175 pounds on the scale. She might be freaking out thinking, I am so overweight. I am so unhealthy. I do not look good, right? Those could be her thoughts. You might also have a woman that is 4'11" and weighs 175 pounds, and she might think she looks amazing, that her clothes fit exactly how she wants them to fit. You could also have a woman that is 5'11" and weighs 175 pounds, and she might be like, I'm super thin. I need to maybe gain some weight. Or she could have the thought, I'm super happy with my weight. You could have a male that's 6'2" and weighs 175 pounds, and he might be thinking, I really want to gain muscle. I really am not happy with how thin I look. The 175 pounds has no significance until we give it significance, meaning that it's just a circumstance, and our circumstances are always neutral. So you could have the same number on the scale, and you could have thousands of people who experience that number differently. And that's the first thing that I really want to remind you of whenever you're on a weight loss journey, is that if you are struggling with what you weigh or how you look or what you're eating or what you're doing, right? Especially the number on the scale, It means nothing until you assign meaning to it. So you have to ask yourself, what is it that I'm struggling with when it comes to my weight? Is it that I am overeating? Okay, is it that I am buffering with food, meaning that whenever I'm stressed out, I decide that I'm going to eat because I don't want to feel the stress, and eating temporarily makes it feel better, but as a result, I may be gaining weight? Is it the way that my clothes are fitting? So whenever you're looking at weight loss, it's really, or just your weight in general or your body image, it's really important to get to the root of what you're thinking about it. What are you actually thinking about yourself carrying the weight that you're carrying? And what are you thinking about losing the weight? Okay, because a lot of us say we want something like, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to start eating healthy more often, or I want to go to the gym more consistently. And it's very easy to say that. Super easy to say that we want it. It's much more difficult to actually go forward and take all of the steps necessary to create the results. But I want to let you know it's not because of your action or lack of action necessarily. It all starts with the thought process that you have driving what is creating your feelings, and your feelings that are driving the action or action that you don't take. And the action or inaction is what creates your results. So if you see 220 pounds on the scale, you are going to have a thought about it. It's either going to be a thought you're happy with or a thought that you're not. And if your thought is, I'm overweight, or I am fat, or I am ugly, or I hate myself, whatever your thought is, and I hope that nobody on here ever says things like you hate yourself. It's so important how you talk to yourself. But we're going to be realistic, because the human mind is super mean to us a lot of times, right? You're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough. We get into compare and despair. So let's just say 220 pounds. That is neutral. There are a lot of people in the world that weigh 220 pounds. That circumstance is neutral, but what do you think about it when it comes to you? You may look at other women or men that weigh the exact same amount and say, oh my gosh, they're a beautiful human being, or their body type is amazing, or I wish I had their body type. But when you see that number on the scale and you look at yourself in the mirror, you might be like, I am not happy with this. I do not like looking like this, or I am unhealthy, or whatever your thought is. That thought is what creates the emotion that you feel in your body. Okay. So if you're thinking I'm fat, or I'm overweight, or I'm ugly, or I hate how my clothes look on me, or I'm just not pretty because of the number that you're seeing on the scale, or because of what you see when you look in front of the mirror, that's going to be what creates your feeling. Your thought creates your feeling. Okay. So you have the thought, I'm ugly, or I'm overweight, or I'm not happy with myself. And that creates a feeling in your body. And then that feeling that you experience in your body is what drives the action that you will or will not take. So if you feel defeated, defeat is not really a feeling that is going to create the action of wanting to do something. Right? So if that was a feeling you identify with, I feel defeated. We don't really do a lot of, action when we feel defeated. That's kind of like an emotion where it's very easy to give up. But if your thought process is, here again, I am overweight, or I'm not happy with the way that my body looks, if that's the thought, and then your feeling becomes determined, then determined is a feeling where it's going to maybe create action of, I'm going to at least eat better. I'm going to actually work out. Do you see what I'm saying? So whenever you're struggling with weight loss or anything around your weight, you really need to be becoming more mindful and self-aware of the thought process running in the background. Like every time you go and you pick maybe eating out instead of eating something healthy at home, there's a thought behind that. Those are the sneaky thoughts that are creating your results. What are they? Is it that you feel like eating at home doesn't bring as much pleasure as eating out? Is it that you're worried about missing out with your friends? Is it, that you have an underlying story of it's really hard for me to stick to something? Or I'm inconsistent. Those are thoughts. Like I am inconsistent is not a fact, it's a thought. Okay? So you really have to call yourself out. And a lot of times, when we're struggling with something that we really want, so you want the weight loss, but you're not seeing it happen, and what you do see is like, oh, my friends invited me out to dinner. I'm going to go out to dinner instead of eating my couscous and, grilled chicken and broccoli at home. And maybe you're having this underlying thought of like, I'm inconsistent, I will never lose the weight. It's not the fact that you didn't eat the couscous, right? Or the grilled chicken. As much as it's about what thought you had in association with the food that was on the table. Okay, and if the thought when you looked at the food was, I'm not consistent, or I don't want to miss out on fun with my friends, that thought is the thought that is driving the result that you're getting. Okay, so if you're like, I don't want to miss out with my friends, that means you also have an underlying thought that eating healthy is missing out. And that's really important to recognize. And the more aware you become in recognizing these patterns, these thought patterns that sometimes are very subconscious, the easier it becomes to decide a thought that is going to actually serve you. So I've actually worked with a lot of clients over the years where they really are struggling with their weight. And whenever we get to the root of it, sometimes it's painful things that they're thinking that keep the weight on their body. So I actually have a lot of clients that unfortunately experienced molestation or sexual trauma or rape at a very young age. And because of that, they, like shortly after that experience, they started eating to cope and they started gaining weight. And maybe it's been 20 years or 30 years since that incident, but they're still feeling overweight, right? They're like, I'm overweight. I don't like how I am in my body. I don't like how I feel. And when we really start coaching on that, sometimes the underlying thought isn't even about the food and their, negative thoughts about healthy food or their thoughts about I'm going to be missing out with friends. When we keep digging to really learn the root sometimes, it's that they learned that they didn't get as much attention from men holding all the weight on their body. Like if they were thin, they got more attention from men, or at least that's how they felt. And whenever they were quote unquote overweight, they didn't receive attention from men. And it was their underlying subconscious mechanism for self protection after experiencing sexual trauma in their younger days. So, underlying, they had a thought of if I hold the weight, no one will find me desirable, which means that that horrible thing that happened to me 20 years ago will never be able to happen again. So, I need to keep the weight to keep myself safe. And that's usually not a conscious thought we're having. That is usually a deep-rooted subconscious belief somewhere in our system. And when that is a subconscious belief in the system, it's going to make it very hard for you to see any weight loss, right? Because if your underlying thought that's very sneaky is the weight is protecting me from that ever happening again, then you're going to take the cheeseburger over the salad. You're likely not going to want to work out, and you're going to have other stories on top of it, right? The more conscious stories of like, I'm just not motivated. I lose my motivation very quickly. I don't like unhealthy food as much. I don't like drinking as much water as I would need to. This is not that bad. You're going to have thoughts that are trying to serve you more than the thoughts of getting you healthy or at the weight that you want to experience. So it's conscious thoughts that are contributing, but it's also subconscious thoughts a lot of times that are contributing. And your job, the work that I'm teaching you, hopefully on this podcast, is about your self-awareness. That is the overall theme of becoming your highest self. Self-awareness. Because the more self-aware you become in every area of your life, but especially your mind, your emotional intelligence, right? Your energy, when you really learn yourself in those 3 ways, there is nothing that you cannot create. There's nothing that you can't do. When you are learning how to master those areas, you can create any result that you want, but it really starts with the mind. And it really starts with understanding your body too, and being able to lean in and feel your feelings, right? Sometimes we're running away from that result we actually want because we're not willing to feel all the negativity that we do feel when we have those thoughts like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty, or I'm not as pretty as her. Those thoughts feel pretty terrible. And so if they're subconscious and they don't feel good, because our thoughts create our feelings, meaning that every time we have a thought, we feel something. Okay, so if you have a thought, I love my best friends, and you feel joy, that's amazing. But if you have thoughts of, I'm not as good as my friends, then you might feel jealousy, or you might feel sadness. And the emotion that you're holding in your body, if you don't feel it, like if you don't actually lean into it and really just allow yourself to feel the feeling, a lot of times you will replace that feeling with a buffer, with busy work, with distraction, with social media, with food, with wine, right? With something that takes away the pain of the feeling. And a lot of times that's a negative emotion. So you don't want to feel the sadness. You don't want to feel jealousy. So it's like, I'll go eat. That feels better. Or I'll go drink. That feels better. Okay, and every single time you're taking action from a feeling that you're not wanting to feel, you're creating a result that you don't even want. So if you're overeating because you feel depressed, you're going to be adding weight to your body, right? And you don't like that result because it's the opposite of what you say that you're wanting. But that feeling of like, I feel out of control, I feel like I can't do it, I feel like I fail every single time, you're creating a spiral of more thoughts that are not serving you. In this situation specifically with the weight. Okay, so if you're struggling with this and it just feels like very, very hard to tackle, very, very hard to work on, seek one-on-one coaching, right? If you have a lot of trauma in your past that you think you're holding on to, seek counseling. There's nothing wrong with therapy or coaching, right? Asking for help is one of the strongest things that we can ever do. And it really doesn't matter the avenue that you choose. And also try multiple therapists if you can't find the right one. If you go to the therapist and they make you feel uncomfortable or you don't like it, go find another one. Same thing with a coach or a mentor or whatever. It's not a one size fits all. Everybody has their different style. Everybody is a different human being. Everybody has their different thought processes and beliefs and personalities, and you might not mesh with the first one that you find, and that's okay. And then you might find one that you love and you stick with forever because you see your life changing and you're like, yeah, this is my person. They get me. They understand me. I love this. I love doing this work with them in my corner. So find that person that can help you. And if I'm that person, I'm happy to help you even through your struggle with maybe whatever it is that's causing a result you're not happy with, whether that is the weight that you have on your body or just the image that you see whenever you look in the mirror, right? There is a thought that's creating that. There are probably multiple thoughts creating that. And again, just as a last minute reminder, you can get 6 coaching calls right now for $300. $300. This is an amazing opportunity if you've been looking for coaching and you've been nervous about the financial commitment, but you really do want it. Like you really do want something. And that's the thing. I want people that are serious. So even though it is $300 that I'm charging, I want people that are really excited to show up and be coached in this level. And just the way that I explained, like the circumstance, the thought, the feeling, the action, the result, that's the way that you're going to be coached those 6 times we coach together specifically. It'll be shorter sessions. but it's going to be more focused on exactly the thought process that is keeping you from creating a result. So it's going to be straight and to the point, and it should help you get results very quickly. I don't want to promise results quickly actually, because it kind of depends on the layers that you have. Like, some people may use those 6 coaching calls and literally coach on the same thing 6 times because maybe they're having a hard time moving through it, and that is okay. There might be other people who want to work on something new every single session for 6 sessions. So I shouldn't say that it'll get you results quickly, because if someone has something deep that maybe they start working on and then they decide, 2 weeks later they want to switch it and work on something else, that's totally okay. But that might mean they have some lingering things from the first thing that we coached on. So I actually want to take that back, that your results aren't always going to be quick, but the result here is more so about seeing where your brain is creating the result that you're getting. I should say that. It's not that your life is going to change in 6 sessions. It's more so that your mind is going to become much more aware in those 6 sessions. That's more of what I'm saying. Okay, you guys. Reach out if you need anything. Check the show notes if you need to get in contact with me. I will be seeing you next week. If you have any episode ideas that you want to hear about, or this episode helped you, reach out and let me know. Leave a review if you're an iTunes listener and you haven't done that. It helps me stay in the ranks so other people can find me, and I really appreciate it. So I will see you next week. I hope you have an amazing, amazing week. Bye.